When I first bought my house in the peaceful Willow Creek neighborhood, I thought I had finally found my dream home. Quiet streets, friendly neighbors, and a big backyard that bordered an empty, grassy lot. The HOA, or Homeowners Association, was strict but manageable. They handled lawn maintenance, security patrols, and made sure no one painted their house neon pink. A few months after moving in, I noticed construction equipment parked near that empty lot. I didn't think much of it at first. The HOA was always talking about new community projects. But then, one morning, I woke up to the sound of jackhammers. When I stepped outside, I saw workers digging one right past the fence line into what I was sure was part of my property. I approached one of the workers asking what was going on. He said they were building the new community pool. I laughed at first, assuming he meant the lot next to mine. But when I showed him my survey stakes, small metal rods marking the boundary, he shrugged and said the HOA had approved the project. Confused, I went to the HOA president, a woman named Karen Dawson, who was infamous in the neighborhood for being controlling and dismissive. She told me in her usual condescending tone that the pool plans had been reviewed and cleared, and that I must be mistaken about my property line. Still, something didn't feel right. I pulled out my original property documents, found the survey, and compared it to the HOA's posted project map. My suspicions were confirmed. The pool's foundation was being dug 10 feet into my backyard. I confronted Karen again, this time with proof in hand. She waved it off, saying, "It's a small encroachment. The community needs this pool. You should be proud your land is part of something that benefits everyone." That statement lit a fire in me. I wasn't about to let my property be taken for free, especially by an HOA that thought it could bully me. The next morning, I hired a land surveyor to verify everything officially. When the results came back, my fears were confirmed. The HOA's pool was indeed being built on my land, and they had no idea that soon their little community project would cost them more than they ever imagined. The surveyor's official report gave me all the ammunition I needed. I walked into the next HOA meeting with the document in my hand and fire in my chest. The room was full. Homeowners were buzzing about the new pool, excited for summer. When I asked for the floor, Karen reluctantly allowed me to speak. I stood tall and held up the report. "The HOA pool is being built on my property," I announced. "I have legal proof." The room went silent. A few neighbors exchanged nervous looks. Karen laughed uncomfortably, saying I was confused about property boundaries. That's when I slammed the stamped survey report onto the table. "This is from a licensed surveyor," I said firmly. "You're trespassing." Karen's smile faded. She whispered something to the HOA's vice president, and they quickly ended the meeting. But I wasn't leaving quietly. I told everyone present that if construction didn't stop immediately, I would involve my attorney. The next day, instead of stopping, the HOA doubled down. Construction continued, and Karen even had security stationed near the site to prevent interference. That's when I realized this wasn't a mistake. It was arrogance. So I called my lawyer, James Monroe, who specialized in property disputes. He reviewed my documents, photos, and the survey report, and his eyes widened. "This isn't a minor encroachment," he said. "They've poured concrete and installed plumbing lines on your land. You could sue them for damages and win big." Within a week, James filed a cease and desist order against the HOA, but instead of stopping, Karen sent out an email blast to all residents claiming I was trying to sabotage the community project for personal gain. Suddenly, my neighbors started giving me the cold shoulder, but I didn't care about their opinions. I cared about justice. When the HOA ignored the legal notice, we escalated. James prepared a lawsuit for trespassing, property damage, and unauthorized land use. The estimated damages, $500,000. Karen and the board laughed when they got served. "You'll never win," she said. The HOA has legal immunity for community projects. But that's where she was wrong. Because when the court reviewed the deed records, they were about to find something that would turn the entire HOA's smug confidence into panic. When our case finally went to court, the HOA arrived with their attorney, acting like they were above the law. Karen strutted in with her binder of HOA approvals and a smug grin that made my blood boil. But once the judge opened the hearing and my lawyer presented the property line documents, The mood shifted. James displayed the official county map, the surveyor's report, and drone photos clearly showing the pool extending well into my property. The judge raised an eyebrow. "Mrs. Dawson," he said, "did the HOA obtain the plaintiff's written consent before beginning construction on his land?" Karen stumbled. "Well, no, but this was a community project and—" The judge cut her off. "Community project or not, you have built on private property without permission." Her lawyer tried to argue that I hadn't objected soon enough, but we had time-stamped photos proving I confronted them the very first week construction began. The courtroom was dead silent except for Karen's nervous fidgeting. Then came the kicker. Our expert witness, a property appraiser, testified that because of the pool's placement, my land had been permanently altered, and I couldn't build or sell it without major loss of value. Over $500,000 worth. Karen's confident smile was gone. The HOA's defense fell apart fast. When they tried to claim the mistake was the contractor's fault, the judge reminded them that the HOA had approved and supervised the project. The moment the judge read the words, "unauthorized occupation of private property," I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. But it wasn't over yet. Karen stood up and shouted, "You're ruining the community! Everyone wanted this pool!" The judge's gavel slammed. "Sit down, Mrs. Dawson. The community's wishes do not override property law." The court ruled in my favor. The HOA was ordered to pay $500,000 in damages and to immediately stop use of the pool until ownership disputes were resolved. As I walked out of the courtroom, Karen glared at me with pure venom. But I just smiled. The HOA thought they could steal from me. Instead, they'd have to pay for their arrogance. The verdict sent shockwaves through the entire neighborhood. The HOA was forced to shut down the pool, drain it, and post a big red "closed by court order" sign on the gate. Suddenly, everyone who used to ignore me now wanted to talk. Neighbors approached me, some apologetic, others curious. "You actually won?" one man asked. "Against the HOA?" I nodded. "They built on my property. Now they owe me $500,000. Karen, on the other hand, was furious. Rumors spread that she'd been voted out of her position after the board realized her reckless leadership cost them hundreds of thousands. She even tried to start a petition blaming me for destroying community harmony, but no one signed. A few months later, the HOA cut me a settlement check. Watching that payment clear was satisfying, not just for the money, but for the principle. They'd learned a lesson: you don't mess with private property. With part of that settlement, I landscaped my backyard and built a private outdoor space where the pool once stood, complete with a small pond and garden. Every time I looked at it, I was reminded of how close I came to losing what was mine. The new HOA board eventually approached me with a formal apology and asked if I'd consider helping them revise community guidelines to prevent such issues in the future. I agreed, but with one condition: Karen would never hold an HOA position again. The story of the stolen pool became neighborhood legend. New residents heard about it as a cautionary tale. Don't mess with boundaries, legal or otherwise. And me? I didn't just get my land back. I got justice and $500,000 to prove that sometimes standing your ground literally pays off.